is Nikki Baird, and I also have with me Paula Rosenblum, and we are managing partners at Retail Systems Research. And today we're going to present findings from some new research that we have conducted around the store and omnichannel. And we're calling this an omnichannel store health assessment. And we did find in the course of this research that really only the strong are positioned to survive. But we do have also a lot of recommendations and a lot of insights for how retailers can become much stronger in their store health. So let's go through our findings. So first, we want to start with our new methodology, which is called START. This methodology is being applied specifically to the store today, but you will very likely see other areas of the business that are a focus of START from us in the future. But what we found is over the years, we have spent a lot of time looking at retailers through the lens of our BOOT methodology, which really focuses on the alignment between business strategy and technology investments, but does not necessarily go into a lot of detail for execution. And so we wanted to develop a new methodology that really helped us dive deeper into the execution side of the business. And we looked at store first because we just hear so much from our retail audience that the store is the part of the business that is currently the most challenged or that they're the most worried about. We also hear a lot of, everything is really important in the store, so how do I prioritize this? How do I focus on the things that are going to matter most that will help my store survive? So we do expect to cover most functional areas in retail, but the store is definitely the most important today. Our objective is really to help retailers figure out where to begin with transforming stores, whether they're moving in the right direction, whether they're moving fast enough. I think that one is critically important. And then most important is how to find opportunities to transform faster and more efficiently. And I think a key area that we really wanted to focus on was realism. The retailers don't have a lot of margin to play with, and part of our mantra as a company is to be very, very pragmatic. So we wanted to make sure that the recommendations that we were making and the advice that we were giving to retailers was really based in a sense of what retailers are really able to execute in stores and how they could do that in a way that keeps them successful. So what we're presenting today is an aggregated view across all retailers. Our intention, though, is to provide a tool for individual companies to use so that you can go and take an assessment against this aggregated response and get an idea for where your stores fall and how healthy your stores are and ready for omnichannel and the increasing demands that consumers are placing on retailers in the future. And we'll have some information at the end on how you can access that. So what we're going to cover today is our research overview, so kind of why did we focus on this and what's the high level of what's going on in stores. And then we're going to talk about strategy, which is the S in START, for a moment in particular, because it was such a problem area that even though we do look at retailers by service model, and we'll go into more detail about what that means, one of the things that we found really quickly is that it didn't matter, it really didn't matter what kind of retailer you are. There's really a lot of disconnects out there between what retailers say is their value proposition to their customers and then what they say are their strengths that they're leveraging in order to deliver on those value propositions. So we'll cover that separately, and then we'll dive into the service model. And then within each service model, we'll cover strategy, tactics, an action plan, reworking processes, technology priorities, and then we'll sort of sum it all up at the end with some recommendations. But that's the letters of START right there. So if you're not familiar with RSR, we have been benchmarking the retail industry for 10 years now, and our mission in life really is to help retailers make more strategic decisions about their technology investments and to help technology providers who are selling solutions better position their products to meet retailers' needs. And I would say that the 4 things that are highlighted on here are the most important to us in terms of what we bring to the market: objective insights, and then pragmatic advice, and that pragmatism will hopefully be on large display today. And then extensive retail industry experience. We have all been lifelong retailers and been in the industry for more years than I would care to count. And also, we're relying on a deep bed of research. And actually, normally we would highlight a lot of that research when we talk to you about, what retailers are doing and what they need to do. And we do have, those aggregated results. But a lot of the value of the model and the methodology that we're going to present to you today is really actually kind of hidden from sight. So we've been benchmarking retailers about their store strategies for almost an entire decade. And we brought a lot of those insights into the point of view that we put into the survey that we developed for START. So from top to bottom, START really does reflect our experience and our expertise in the retail industry. So the START methodology, I kind of gave you a preview of what all the letters stand for, but S stands for strategy, and we actually look at 3 things. We look at what are the internal strengths that a retailer feels that they bring to market, and then we look at what is the core value proposition that a retailer brings to or offers to consumers. So what promises are they making consumers really from a brand perspective? And then finally we look at the service model, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but really it's sort of what volume do you expect to do, and what level of service do you expect to provide as part of delivering that volume. And then from there we go to the tactics. And so what tactics support the strategy? And we look at current processes, and we definitely look at that through the lens of omnichannel. So we're considering both how retailers can bring more of a digital experience into their stores, and we also look at how stores can actually bring to life more of that store experience from a digital perspective. And then from there, we sort of look at the alignment between those two, and we're able to develop an action plan. So any of those gaps that exist between strategy and tactics, we identify where those gaps are, and that becomes the basis of really how should the retailer change. And what's really important there is not just how should they look to change going forward, but finding the money. How are you going to pay for this? How can you do this in any kind of reasonable way given the margins that retailers operate with and the competitive environment that they currently are operating within? And then we go from there to kind of break those down into the 2 main components. So reworking processes, and of course there's an employee element in that as well, but we really look at, what, as far as making changes go, what does that mean from a process perspective? And then we look at the technology enablers within that. So sometimes that means asking retailers to do completely new things, in which case they need to reprioritize their technology investments. And sometimes we're looking at the priority that retailers have already placed on their technology investments and asking them to realign those priorities. All right, so let's get into the research. So we started out strong with only the strong will survive, and we're not going to let off the gas pedal from that perspective. Stores have been in trouble for a long time, but the erosion has been kind of subtle at first, and it really was only until holiday 2016 where it became just painfully apparent that store traffic was flat or falling, or worse, dropping off a cliff, that mobile was winning in terms of customer engagement for the holiday experience, and that the retailer's store experience just is not doing enough to keep up. So, we really intend this to be a wake-up call. If you feel like you're doing all the right things for your stores, then unless you really are delivering the results that other retailers would be envious of, you're not doing enough. And the irony is that with all of those challenges, or with that context around this, stores are still a key contributor to retail performance. In fact, it's the strongest contributor to retail performance, especially if you are an omnichannel retailer. Online can be a challenging place for you to make money. Stores are where most of the transactions happen, and it's still where most of the profit is to be made. But the other challenge with stores is that they take a really long time to change. Most retailers I know could not completely remodel their fleet of stores, especially if they're nationwide or global, could not remodel their fleet of stores in less than 5 years. So at the rate of change that technology is driving consumer behavior, retailers don't have that long to figure out their stores. They really need to get moving now. So as I said, stores matter. We asked our respondents to characterize how stores contributed to their company performance last year, and 69% said that it helped their company performance. And another 25% said, it was, sort of break even. And really only 6% of respondents said that stores actually hurt their company performance. So, stores still make a lot of money in retail. All right, so let's talk about strategy before we get into each of the service models. So anytime you're looking at tactics or execution, even if you think your strategy is set and strong and great, it's still always worth a gut check. And I think one of the things that we learned in this research is that retailers really need this gut check when it comes to stores. I think a lot of retailers are assuming that their strategy and how that strategy is executed in stores is actually highly aligned, and the reality that we found is that they are not. So I said at the beginning that we look at 3 contributors to store strategies, and the first is the value proposition. It's the promise that retailers are making to consumers. Are you a lifestyle expert, or are you a low price leader? And then core competencies. These are the internal strengths, the strengths and advantages that retailers have internally that they can leverage to deliver on their promises. And then finally, the service model, how they actually deliver on those promises to consumers, and in this case, specifically through stores. Some of the things that we found is that retailers are overly fixated on price. That's no surprise. If you read any of our other research, you'll find that when retailers talk about their business challenges, consumer price sensitivity, consumer price transparency are all issues that tend very high towards the top of the list. But even more surprising for us is the fact that their core competencies seem to have no relation to their ability to deliver low prices. And in fact, some of the things that in the aggregate retailers said were their internal strengths actually can undercut on their ability to promise low prices. And then their service model often offers very little rationality in how their value propositions or core competencies can actually be delivered to consumers. Why would a low volume, high touch retailer who typically is luxury or high-end apparel, for example, why would they want to be a low price leader? So here's the summary of the results from the survey around value propositions. So the top 2 chief value propositions to the consumer, and we did ask retailers to kind of lifeboat and only pick 2, so you can't pick all 8 of these, was low prices and convenience, which for a lot of retailers is fine. If you're a high volume, low touch retailer, low prices and convenience make a lot of sense. But what was really surprising for us was the 6% at the bottom. Only 6% of our respondents, including the low volume, high touch retailers, said that one of their chief value propositions to the consumer was lifestyle expertise. And frankly, that's just shocking, especially if you're a branded, manufacturer, vertically integrated retailer. Your brand value is lifestyle expertise. There were far more retailers who took this survey who really should have said lifestyle expertise and actually did, and that was very disappointing. And then in terms of competitive advantage, so remember, low price and convenience were the value propositions that most retailers said were their value propositions to consumers, but powerful brand marketing and superior product design topped the list as the top two sources of competitive advantage. And even in a scenario where a retailer is spending all of their marketing budget on promoting their low prices, I would argue that that's not powerful brand marketing per se. You're not talking to the market about how you are able to deliver low prices. You're just saying, I have this product for $3.95 and you should come buy it from me. And that to me is not powerful brand marketing. And yet a large plurality of respondents said that that was at the top of the list of a competitive advantage. And then in what situation would low prices and convenience as a promise to customers result in a retailer who wanted to focus on superior product design as one of their competitive advantages, as one of their core competencies? There's very, very few situations that I can think of where superior product design really is going to help you deliver on those value propositions. If you're going to invest in product design, you want to be able to recoup that through being able to have a higher margin that justifies that investment in product design. Some of the other things down at the bottom that were interesting, deep process analytics and metrics. There's cases where there are retailers for whom that should be valuable. If you're offering a value proposition of convenience, I would expect a retailer to want to be strong and be able to leverage deep process analytics and metrics in order to actually deliver on that promise of convenience, because you have to make sure that your processes are as convenient to consumers and efficient as possible. And clearly that was an area that very, very few retailers valued. So, and then finally, the third component of strategy is the service model. And we asked about three. So high volume, low touch. Those are your grocers, your high volume general merchandise kind of retailers. And then low volume, high touch, those are your luxury retailers, jewelry, high-end apparel, those kinds of categories of goods. And then high volume, high touch tend to be sort of what's left of the category killers, if you will. So consumer electronics, home improvement, pets, all of those retailers that used to be known as the category killers before Amazon basically came along and killed that term. So you can see that there's actually a fairly even distribution, especially given that high volume, low touch, when you're talking about CPG, fast-moving consumer goods being a large part of this, it's not surprising that it kind of fell out this way. And we were actually really glad to see kind of an even distribution here in terms of respondents to our assessment. But for the store, you can theoretically look at, the types of products that retailers sell as the lens. But honestly, when it comes down to it, it's really this service model here that is the promise that retailers are making when a consumer walks in a store. When you walk in a store, you can tell just by looking at it right away what kind of service expectation you should have. Is this going to be the kind of store where they expect to move a lot of goods through and I'm not going to get a lot of help at the shelf? The value proposition to me is more about making sure that the product's on the shelf than it is about somebody standing at the shelf and holding my hand and helping me make a decision. Whereas whether you're high volume or low volume, in a high touch environment, totally expect an employee to play a large role in helping me through my shopper journey when I'm in the store. And then, of course, low volume is a different standard of service, even from a high volume perspective. But that's kind of how these three service models break down. And so this is the way that we looked at the results. Everything that follows from here will focus on the service model first, and then we'll look at the results through the lens of that service model. But we wanted to make sure that you had kind of an understanding of why we did that and how many retailers fell into each of these categories. So wrapping up the strategy section, when we looked at combinations of value propositions and core competencies, we just found a huge number of disconnects, a really dismaying number of disconnects. You know, the retailers who promise low prices are primarily planning on supporting that through powerful brand marketing and superior product design, and that just makes no sense. A promise of convenience, they felt the retailers who said that they were making that promise of convenience, their top internal core competency was a strong merchandising function. And while, you know, you can make a case for merchandising playing a role in delivering convenience, you know, they're really an adjacent delivery method of convenience compared to the kind of service that a customer would get in store. Can you speed me through checkout? Can you speed me down the aisles? Can you make it easy for me to select products? You know, those are much more factors of convenience. And then conversely, those retailers who were promising convenience were not promising process analytics, were not able to or focused on process analytics or deep customer insights, both of which you would argue that if you're going to deliver on convenience, you got to make sure you understand what that means to consumers and whether you're capable of delivering that. But retailers did not cite those as internal strengths. And then retailers promising customer service did not see differentiated customer service as a core competency or deep customer insights. And retailers promising high product availability didn't see supply chain efficiency or agility as internal strengths. And so when we kind of went through this first part of the analysis, we just had to stop and take a breath because, you know, I think that retailers do assume that their business strategy and their stores are already aligned. And from our results, we saw right away that that is not necessarily a safe assumption for you to make. Consumer expectations have shifted very, very much over the last decade and more, driven by their own technology adoption. And part of the reason why stores are in trouble is because they have not kept up with those shifts. So if you're looking at your stores, the first question you have to ask yourself is, what am I promising to customers at a brand level, right, and at a marketing level? What am I promising to customers? And then you have to ask yourself, what am I leveraging in stores to actually bring those promises to life? Before you can even take that step of evaluating how well stores are actually delivering on those two things in the context of their service model. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paula, who will take us through that view of the service model.
High volume, low touch retailers. So this is our START assessment for them. Now these retailers are your traditional, as Nikki said, mass merchants, large box retailers. You know, it's the Targets and the Walmarts of the world. It's the big box retailer where there's very little expectation of customer service. It's really all about convenience and product availability. There's nothing more depressing than going to a high volume, low touch environment, battling your way through the traffic, wandering your way through the store and discovering the thing you want is out of stock. It's the worst. But as it turns out, we found that strategically these folks are competent. Tactically, they're competent. Action plan wise, we found there were some areas where actually this was a cool one, because in this particular model we did find ways that we could pull money out. That not only are we going to ask you to spend more money, but for high volume, low touch retailers, we found that the employees were doing things they didn't need to do, and that led to some really interesting ways to rework processes, because in fact money is being spent where it doesn't need to be spent and could be put in elsewhere. Technology-wise, we saw mobile enablement and process priorities for technology investments. So let's take a look. High volume, low-touch retailers. What are their value propositions? What are the top two? Low prices and convenience. Makes a lot of sense. Makes all the sense in the world. Very good thing. And product availability right behind. Customer service, as we would expect, lower. Customer experience, that's an outcome, truth be told. If you've got low prices, convenience, and availability, the customer will have a good experience. There isn't an expectation of exclusive products. This is absolutely a commodities play, and curated products. You know, that's a debate. At this moment, generally, we'll say that it's not as important. I think as we generationally move forward, curated products may become more important. That's why companies like Walmart and Target are looking at more smaller footprint stores, because they're trying to figure out if lifestyle and expertise in curated products can actually help them within the context of low prices and convenience. It's an interesting test. I know Tesco tried something here and they didn't do very well. So we'll see how it plays out going forward. Target's got some small footprint boxes going. Walmart's continually experimenting with that. So when we take a look at the competitive advantages cited by high-volume, low-touch retailers, topping the list, even though it's only at 36%, nonetheless, the most frequently cited source of competitive marketing is a competitive advantage is powerful brand marketing. I would argue that this doesn't make a lot of sense unless it's around branding yourself as a low-price leader. But that's a tough game to play, because that leads us to a race to the bottom. That's really unpleasant. And that's kind of where we are today. If we take a look at the next ones, it kind of makes some sense. Supply chain efficiency, absolutely, because this is all about driving costs down. Superior products design, not in my mind, because you're selling commodities. A strong merchandising function. You know, we have some internal debates about this. I think that a strong merchandising procurement capability is more important than a merchandising function, because procurement says I can buy it for the least possible cost and get it into the stores at the most fastest speed. But nonetheless, something around merchandising and speed and getting it into the store is imperative. The rest of these, I think, are a bit less important, although collaborative trading will help you get faster and will help you replenish faster, which is pretty important when it comes to satisfying the customer's need, which is to get in, get what she wants, get the vast majority of what she wants, and then leave. So we rated overall this group as competent. There's a strong alignment on the value proposition to the customer, low price, convenience, and product availability. As I said, there's too much focus on brand marketing and superior product design, not enough on merchandising, procurement, and deep process insights. Think about what your stores are meant to be about, and that helps you understand strategically where you need to be. We were not uncomfortable with this group at all. Tactics-wise, and when we look at content, you can see that all of these numbers are fairly low. Again, no surprise, content to support shoppers during the transaction phase was rated very well by more than anyone, but particularly in this kind of environment, you would have thought that would have been up at 70%, that you can get in and out really fast. I know that dual displays are there to help A, entertain the consumer, B, do a little bit of selling while they're sitting there, and C, let them see how much money they're saving. But nonetheless, I was surprised that there wasn't more positive feeling about the transaction phase. Triggering need or awareness of demand, all of these, I felt like there should be a little bit more strength in the offering, because don't forget, the employees are not going to provide that information, so it's got to be provided in some form of either automated or static way. And if you don't have the content, you can't really do it. If we look at community, you know, this is pretty good. Events or services that connect local like-minded customers to each other. In this kind of environment, you know, they're joined together by the fact that they like to breeze through. They like that they can get everything in the same place. Events or services that support or reinforce your primary value proposition. I don't know how important they are, but a third of these folks think they do it pretty well. Educating consumers and around categories and products. I think there's a lot of value to retailers doing more around that. I think about Costco's movable feast, and I don't always buy what they have there, but I've often found that they have things that there have been times when I really have, and it actually increases my dwell time in the store, and I avoid the inevitable checkout line because I'm enjoying the movable feast, you know. So there's certain value to those kinds of services, these movable feast type things. And Publix does a pretty decent job of this as well, at least down where I live. Then finally, events or services to help customers enjoy or maintain the products they've purchased. I don't understand why that's important even to a third of you, frankly, because again, these are commodities. We're not talking about really special, unique, and unusual things. So it's nice that 36% say they're very good at it. I would love to see more in those two places in the middle, personally. So let's take a look at commerce. The percentage that captured demand in the store very well. 30% offer endless aisle. That's reasonable. Depending on the price of the item, you may or may not want to do it. Save the sale, same deal. Depending on the price of the item, you may or may not want to do it. Ditto with perpetual carts and split transactions and mobile point of sale. The object of these stores is they have vast checkout lines across the front of the store, you know, vast multitudes. And what you really want is employees to man them or self-service lines where people can go through. So there's two ways to accomplish I mean, you could have the store associate ring a sale without a customer having to go to a cash wrap, or you can have a customer go to a cash wrap without having to deal with a store associate. Either way. But I think the areas where these change are the weakest are, again, and is definitely around the perpetual cart. The rest of it I just don't think is as important. The most important thing is to be in stock. So what about leveraging stores to fulfill demand? 55% will allow for ship to store for in-store pickup. That's a really good thing. 36% will schedule home delivery. That's also a good thing. 36% curbside pickup. We've all seen these in these stores. Same-day delivery. It's actually really hot down here in Florida. I mean, that's no pun intended. Same-day delivery in furniture in Florida is a thing. It was started by City Furniture, and now others have picked it up as well. And if you see something on the floor and they have it in stock, they will deliver it the same day, some of them even on Sunday, which is pretty amazing. I mean, that's like, wow. And it's hard to call those stores because they're so big high touch. It's really low touch, but we will take care of it for you. Again, ship from store and in-store pick for in-store pickup. A decent number, I think, are leveraging the stores in that way. So again, here we rated competence. We rated competency. There's too much reliance on non-existent employees to deliver content and community in stores. It's pretty important to focus on the select and transact phase of the customer journey and improve inventory visibility to capitalize on omnichannel investments. Now I get to what for me was the fun part of doing this part of the analysis, and that was to come to the realization that employees were doing things they didn't need to do, and there was actually an opportunity to pull money out of the store, which was really fun. So you got to ask yourself, I mean, I know how we got to this place where too much payroll was taking out, but why are you adding payroll back in? And as we'll see in a minute, retailers certainly are in this segment adding payroll back in. The question is, what are you having employees do? Shouldn't you be getting them focused on convenience and product and availability rather than on selling? Since your brand promise, which ostensibly is one of the most important things you have got going on, your brand promise is convenience and product availability. It's not on attention from employees. You might want to consider, because again, your employees are meant to really provide support services here. You might want to consider involving vendors in supporting content and community in stores to keep employees focused on product availability and convenience. For example, this just comes right to mind offhand. When I go into a Publix and they sell wine, they offer free wine in the aisles sometimes. And it's my nature, I'll ask, what are they doing there and who do they work for? And invariably, they don't work for the store. They work for the wine company, and they've just been brought in to do that. And again, I talked before about MSOs. which is actually which merchandise service organizations, and they will stock the shelves for a retailer, obviously for a bit of a fee. But if you're a big enough retailer, you should be able to get them to do that for you, which frees up your own employees to do other things. I think it's pretty important to increase reliance on digital in store. And digital includes digital signage, digital ways to deliver content and community that supports the selection phase of the shopper journey. I just envision, and we had a debate about whether this was technology or whether this was a process. But it doesn't much matter. The point is there should be something that's telling people about promotions that doesn't have to come from employees. Telling people about special offers that doesn't require an employee talking to them. Signage. So as I mentioned before, why the payroll investment? It's very nice to see that two-thirds of high-volume, low-touch retailers are planning to increase their payroll to sales ratio over the next 3 to 5 years, and another 29% staying the same and only 5% to decrease. Because there isn't a one of us who doesn't know that those stores cut their payroll way too lean. But what we started to find was that the things that these payroll people are going to be doing aren't necessarily the things they need to do. Here we can see that not enough retailers have provided mobile devices for their in-store employees. I use an example of Target all the time. I was in a Target store and I needed to buy a wastebasket. I ended up not buying it there, but I needed to buy one. And Target stores are pretty big, and where the heck am I going to find a little trash basket for my bathroom in the middle of this huge Target store? So we stopped and we asked an employee, and she picked up her iPhone, which looked like it had been retail hardened a little bit, and she clicked on a few buttons and discovered the aisle where it was and walked over with us. And in the course of her walking us over, I found out that she'd been working at the store for 2.5 days. And so here was something so very simple, just a locator system, that allowed her to, A, engage with us, make a connection, which was nice, B, make her feel like she was adding value very quickly, and C, get us to where we needed to go. So I thought that was really, really cool, and it was very, very nice. And it's unfortunately only 33% of retailers seem to use that in any kind of significant way. For high value, for the capability to save the sale or locate inventory elsewhere, that wasn't terrible, but you've got over 50% that have at least some ability to do that, assuming they know what the inventory looks like other places. So this wasn't terrible. So what are the processes that need to be reworked? The right labor and the right work are imperative. Remember, as I said before, the focus here is on convenience and product availability to support the low prices. So we found that a very surprising number, I don't have it in front of me, I don't know if it's in a chart to follow or not, I don't remember, we'll find out together, but way more of these chains than I expected were providing external emails for their employees in high volume, low touch retailers. Why? Who do they need? What possible use could they have, given their job functions, to communicate outside the company with anybody? That's not a useful task. No good can come out of that, I guess is the best way I can say. As we talked about in the overview, visibility into store shipments is really critical. You have to know when product is coming because there's no other way that a manager can schedule the labor correctly. And I've heard so many harrowing stories of retailers with back rooms overflowing with merchandise, but it can't be processed because there aren't enough employees to do it. And by the time the employees show up, the mess is so big no one knows where to start. So then they just reorder more because they're having out of stocks on the shelves. So it's really important to know when product is coming to the store. Centralize, but also localize. The digital life of the store needs to be local and authentic, but the delivery of the content associated with that really can be centralized, and that can save some money. From a technology perspective, we really believe employee mobile is critical. just so that the employee can move faster, can do faster things. Store manager can get alerted faster, can know when things are, if milk stops selling in a grocery store, there's something very wrong. That should generate an alert immediately. If something that's on promotion has stopped selling relative to someplace else, that tells you you've got an out-of-stock situation on the floor, most likely. Loyalty programs are imperative for that kind of retailer because you are selling commodities, and so you have to find ways, you have to find hooks to keep bringing customers back to the store, and loyalty is one. Automated delivery options for more efficient support of convenience and product availability is very useful as well. These are all technology investments that these retailers can make that will really help you become more profitable and more interesting to the customers and fulfill, again, if we believe that the brand promise is as important as we say it is, then we've got to do everything we can to fulfill that brand promise. And the brand promise is clearly convenience, product availability. So let's take a look at the summary of recommendations. Strategically, we felt this sector is competent. There's a strong alignment on the value proposition. We do think that focusing less on brand marketing and superior product design, which has nothing to do with commodities, and more on merchandise procurement and deep process insights would be valuable. Tactics, we also felt overall this sector had become, you know, as the title of this presentation was, Only the Strong Survive. Now this group has lived through Walmart, it's living through Amazon, and so they've had to get better. And you can see here that they have gotten better. I expect to see the same thing happen with the low volume, high touch retailers eventually. But for now, this is the group that's battle hardened. Now, we do think that there's too much reliance on employees who are basically non-existent to deliver content and community into the stores. So we would like to see focusing on supporting the select and transact focus phase of the customer journey content-wise. And as across all segments, inventory visibility needs to improve. And if it's gotten if it used to be better and it's gotten lost, we need to understand why. If we never had it good in the first place because the turn has been too fast, we have to find a way to slow down and make it work. Action plan, again, we felt not unreasonable, right? But what we wanted to do to help make things more efficient is involving vendors in supporting content and community so that we can keep store employees focused on putting product on the floor and keep making a convenient experience for the customer. And we would like to see an increased reliance on digital, particularly digital signage in the store so that customers can self-serve as they need to, and employees, when asked the question, instead of going, I don't know, can have a place to look. Processes-wise, we felt there were a lot of opportunities, and they weren't all spend money opportunities. They were also save money opportunities, because we were kind of surprised how much low-hanging fruit was here. So we have the right labor and the right work. Remember, the focus is on convenience and product availability so that you can support low prices and still make money. It's imperative, I can't say this enough, visibility into store shipments is a baseline requirement and has been for as long as I've been in the industry. It's imperative. And then centralize as much as you can, but make sure a local flavor remains so that your company doesn't feel like some amorphous, you know, unanchored entity. I still remember, and this is going back a really long time, I lived in Massachusetts, and I used to shop at a particular drugstore there, and I went to visit a friend in Denver, not Nikki, another friend in Denver, and I walked into the same brand drugstore, and the planogram was exactly the same, and I had some weird disconnect and thought I was back in Needham, Massachusetts or something, because everything was exactly where it was in that store. And something about that was off-putting. It didn't make me feel warm. It made me feel uncomfortable. So you need some level of localization, some level of uniqueness that talks to the area you're in. From the technology side, mobile enablement is really important for the employee so that he or she can be smarter faster. Dashboards and alerts for managers so that they can react quickly. Loyalty programs to try and engender some amount of repeat business besides just around who's got the lowest price this week. And finally, automated delivery options for more efficient support of convenience and product availability. And I think now I'm turning it back to Nikki.
Thanks, Paula. So we do hope that you found this review to be valuable, but you may be thinking to yourself, based on my service model, you know, I wouldn't have answered it that way, or that's not how we do it, or that's not what we're focused on. And so being aware that there would be that kind of reaction, we really designed this whole assessment and this whole methodology around the idea of really getting down to the individual retailer. So for anybody who thought that this was valuable, but that you're sort of curious to see how your own store health would be assessed, we have 3 different ways for you to potentially participate and find that out. So the first one is the easiest one. You too can take the survey. So it's exactly the survey that we used to present the results today. What we presented to you was just the aggregated results of a bunch of individual companies who participated. But what we would present to you as a thank you for taking the survey and for enriching kind of the aggregated results, we would also return to you a PowerPoint file of your personal evaluation, insights, and recommendations. And we've been doing these for a couple of months now, and they tend to fall between 45 and 60 slides depending on you know, where your assessment takes us. We're getting down to where we can turn these around faster and faster, so about 3 weeks before you would get one back. The only downside for you is that our surveys usually take about 10 or 15 minutes, but in this case, the survey is longer. I mean, we're asking you harder questions, and we're asking you to really think about your stores and to provide an honest assessment of where your stores are in regards to how it supports the shopping process and where your technology investments are and how you're investing in people in stores, all of that stuff. So because we're delivering an individual personal results, we ask up front for you to identify your email address and the company that you're taking this survey for, which can sometimes be a little bit off-putting. But if you get into it and you decide, you know what, I don't have the time for this, or you know, this is requiring too much, you know, off-the-cuff knowledge for me, and I don't have all of the things I need to answer these questions, which, if you know your stores well, should not be the case. But if you, for some reason you don't complete the survey, you will not receive your PowerPoint assessment. So you do have to complete the survey all the way to the end in order to get your results. And we put the link right here so that you can actually go and take this survey yourself. And if you want something that's a little bit more in-depth, you know, we sort of joke that the survey is a little bit kind of like those Cosmos surveys in the magazine, you know, and what boyfriend is right for you. You know, it only gives you so much. So if you want more, we can do more. And we have 2 ways of doing more. One is sort of a lower level of personal engagement where we would do a week of preparation and then a half-day workshop. And what we would ask for is actually that your executive leadership team all participate in the survey, because it's not just about what the person responsible for stores sees. It's not just, you know, what the CEO sees. It's really how well the executive team is has come to a consensus on what stores are there for and how well the organization is supporting their stores or enabling their stores. So we ask for multiple leaders to participate, and then what we do is we present back those results as an aggregate for just your perspective on your company, and then we also identify areas where there was a lot of consensus and then areas where there was not a lot of consensus about any aspect of START, whether that's the strategy, tactics, action plan, and then how that breaks down into reworking processes or technology initiatives. And a lot of times where things really get hamstrung is that you know what you need to do, but you can't decide what order to do it in. And having that alignment all across START actually really helps kind of get that priorities to just kind of fall out. So when we show up for a half-day workshop, you know, we do a detailed analysis of the shopper journey gaps, we do a detailed discussion of what your opportunities are, and then we wrap that up with a discussion of the technology roadmap and where anything might need to change or be reprioritized in order to support what you're trying to achieve with stores. And then we have a larger consulting engagement that's called Starter, and that one is much more in-depth. We need about 4 weeks of prep. There's a full-day workshop where we're going to ask your executive team to participate, and it basically delivers everything of the store health assessment workshop plus more. So some of the things that we'll do besides the survey is we'll come in and we'll interview your executive team. We'll also, there's technically 5 C's in the C's that we cover. So we cover 3 in the survey. We cover content, community, and commerce. Context is the 4th C, and that's implied because that's the store. The store is the context. But then the 5th C is the customer insights. And so we would include customer insights as part of the assessment. That's not something that you get when you take the survey. And then we would do a much more detailed and in-depth assessment of your technology roadmap and how well it's aligned. We would also look more detailed into an assessment of measures and KPIs. So a lot of times the concerns are things like how are you incentivizing store employees to fulfill orders that come from outside the store? You know, what are the metrics that you're using to evaluate store performance? So we'll bring a perspective on those assessments as well. And then what's included with that is a 6-month advisory where we sort of come in, we do the workshop, we give you the recommendations, and then 6 months later we'll come back and do sort of a course correction if needed. So we'll kind of come back and see how things are going and what's sticking and what's not, what's working, what's not, sort of a health check on the health check, if you will. So if you're interested in any of these programs, we have contact information for our business development person, Linda Wolf, and we would be happy to go over any of these in more detail. And with that, we want to thank you for taking the time to spend with us to talk about the health of stores. As we said when we got started, you know, we knew that retailers were not moving fast enough, and we really wanted to come up with some way of giving them a tool set that would help them move faster. And you know, one of the most difficult things to do is to come up with an action plan in a time of high uncertainty. And right now there is a lot of uncertainty in retail and around stores in particular. So it's just important to make sure that you have whatever certainty you can find. And we really came up with the START methodology in order to provide retailers some of that certainty. So if you have any questions, you are always welcome to contact us, and we encourage you to engage with us in any of these channels that we have on the screen right here. And thank you for your time.